Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who. Last time around we had Gridlock. What was that one about?
Well, the Doctor and Martha went to New Earth, or New Earth, and it was all shut down. Everything above the surface was pretty much destroyed, so they go underground and find out that most of the population is in gridlock. They're in this perpetual traffic jam, and throughout the episode we find out that some plague devastated like 90% of the population in under 10 minutes, and only the people who were literally on the traffic jam were safe. But now the exhaust from their cars, which made no sense since they were anti-gravity, they were being preyed upon by the macra, the giant crabs from the Second Doctor's era, and essentially the calls for help for the police or the first responders never got answered. We talked about how whoever was apparently in charge was also sending out soothing religious messages, this sort of thing. Anyway, the Doctor is found by Novice Haim, who takes him to the face of Bo, who is about to die, and the Doctor realizes that after 2 decades, if they can just figure out how to open up the skyway, that everybody would go out and they'd repopulate the Earth. Anyway, interesting episode. Not certainly no Shakespeare Code. I thought Shakespeare Code was brilliant, but it was an interesting episode.
Yeah, definitely. It's a sad moment, though, the death of the face of Bo. Though he did say, "You are not alone." Yeah, he imparted his last message to the Doctor. What could it mean? What could it mean? It's not like they know or I know.
I'm the only one who doesn't know.
Yeah, so it's an interesting experience, basically getting to the other side. Like, I know I'm right here on this side of the reaction, but like seeing it from this point of view, it's like, oh, this is what I was like 7 years ago, or however many. Was it? It was around 7 years ago or so.
Yeah. On my Facebook feed the other day, our reaction to Stones of Blood came up. It was like 3-4 years ago, and I looked at it and went, did we watch an episode called Stones of Blood? And then I went back and read some of the comments, and I went, I vaguely remember this. It started out like a witches and warlock, and then it went to space and went all strange and weird.
Yeah. So. There's a YouTube channel. They do classic Doctor Who reviews every so often, and they did one for Frontios, and I saw that pop up in my subscription feed, and I was like, huh. And I could see like they had the image of like it had the 5th Doctor and Turlough and stuff, and I was looking, I was like, well, obviously we watched this episode. What was that episode about? And I watched the video and I was like, I'm still not entirely sure I remember this.
And wasn't that the whole Black Guardian saga?
That was after the Black Guardian, I think. I think that might have tied into like Turlough's backstory of like how his planet was destroyed or something. I don't fully remember. But I left a comment on that video, just a little joke comment, where I put Frontios. It must be Italian. And then I went back to our reaction, and I made that exact same joke in the description. So I don't really have an original bone in my body anymore. So, which is evident from the fact that I'm still watching Doctor Who, even after watching everything. I'm still going, and it's not stopping anytime soon. So,
well, gosh, I wonder what this episode is about.
Yeah,
they didn't try to hide this one at all.
No, it's the last episode on the DVD, on this disc specifically. And when I got everything ready for the Runaway Bride, I saw that and I was like, should I do something about that? And I was like, it's not worth it.
No.
It's not worth 5 weeks of trying to hide that title. So yeah, very, very, very curious. I mean, what could be happening today? Anything could be happening today.
Should be the Daleks Take Manhattan,
Excuse me.
like the Muppets did.
Well, yeah. So, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then we might as well jump right into this episode.
Now, makes me wonder, did they actually go to New York City and film? Or is Cardiff standing in for New York City with some inserts?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Promise me you'll come on Sunday, okay? My mother will kill me if she doesn't get to meet you.
What if she doesn't like me?
Tallulah, she'll love you just as much as I do.
Oh, you say the sweetest things.
It's true. Now, promise me Sunday you'll come.
So this is
I promise.
20s or 30s, I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah. Those are the most, 20s and 30s New York names I've ever heard.
I'm coming! Quit yelling!
Got a Alphonse Mucha, or I don't know how to pronounce his last name, posters in the
Like
back
an
wall.
angel.
I used to have a couple of those.
Who's there?
No, it's not a Dalek, I don't think. They don't move that fast.
No, it's the Phantom.
Are you?
Yes, now I can see.
Oh! Pigs! Is that the one from the Slitheen? Didn't they do a altered pig?
They did something like that.
There's a genuine article. So good they named it twice. Mind you, it was New Amsterdam originally. Hard to say twice. No wonder it didn't catch on. New Amsterdam, New Amsterdam.
Wonder what year it is. Because look, the Empire State Building's not even finished yet.
And it's
Work in progress.
1930
Still
or
got a couple
31.
of floors to go.
It's nearly 80 years ago. And you can see those old newsreels all in black and white. Like it's so far away, but here
Oddly
we
enough,
are.
the torch seemed shiny and new. It would have not. I think that's the restored one.
What's Hooverville?
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to.
It's the homeless camps during the Great Depression.
Up till then, New York was a boom town. The roaring 20s, and then
The Wall Street crash, yeah. When's that? 1929?
yeah, whole economy wiped out overnight. Thousands of people unemployed. All of a sudden, the huddled masses doubled in number with nowhere to go. So
40%
in
unemployment.
Central Park.
In the United States, anyway. Oof.
I'm telling you, the men won't stand
What's the building in the
for it.
background?
I mean, are you out of your mind? I got 500 men working 7
Chrysler
days
Building?
a week.
Yeah.
They're flat out.
That's something you don't see every day.
What the hell?
I need men, volunteers. I've got a little work for you, and you sure look like you could use the money.
Yeah, what is the money?
$1 a day.
That's Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield.
Falls right ahead of me. Can't miss.
And when do we get our dollar?
When you come back up,
And if we don't come back up?
then I got no one to pay.
Don't worry. We'll be back.
Let's hope so.
We shall stick together.
Now, Diagoras is a name that sounds Greek, but he sounds like he's an Italian immigrant.
No, I'm Tennessee born and bred.
So how come you're here?
Daddy died. Mama couldn't afford to feed us all, so I'm the oldest, up to me to feed myself. So I put on my coat, hitched up here on the railroads. There's a whole lot of runaways in the camp. Younger than me, from all over Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas.
No, pronounced Missouri, right?
Whoa!
Is it radioactive or something? It's gone off, whatever it is.
Ugh.
Maybe you've got to
Jelly.
pick it up.
Trying your toes through it. Composite organic matter. Martha, medical opinion?
It's
Ew.
not human.
The conductor must be complete for our plan to succeed.
Unemployment is such an incentive. It'll get done. Don't worry.
Daleks have no concept of worry.
Yeah?
And yet you freak out when you see the doctor.
Well, lucky you. We've had wars. I've been a soldier myself. I swore then I'd survive. No matter what.
You have rare ambition.
I want to run this city, whatever it takes. By any means necessary.
You think like a Dalek.
I'll take that as a compliment. Where are we going?
Oh, no elevator music?
Summoned by our leader.
That's a 50s or 60s invention, if I recall.
They're following you.
Yeah, I noticed that, thanks. Well then, Martha, Frank, Solomon. Basically.
Yeah. Oh, Frank.
What do you think happened to Laszlo?
I wish I knew. 1 minute he's there, the next, zip, vanished.
Listen, what was your name?
Tallulah.
Tallulah.
3 L's and an H.
Right. We can try.
Are you
and
sure
find
it's not
Laszlo, but
Harley
he's not
Quinn?
the only one. There are people disappearing every night.
No, creatures. Such creatures.
What do you mean, creatures?
Look, listen, just trust me. Everyone is in danger. I need to find out exactly what this is. Because then I'll know exactly what we're fighting.
You had that in your pocket?
But they'd listen to you. Born of the stars.
Oh, honey. I got one song and a Backstreet review, and that's only because Heidi Chicane broke her ankle, which had nothing to do with me, whatever anybody says. I can't
Break a
afford
leg.
to make a fuss. Hey, you lucky, though. You got yourself a forward-thinking guy with that hot potato and the sharp suit.
He's not. We're not together.
Oh, sure you are. I've seen the way you look at him. It's obvious.
Not to him.
Oh, I should have realized. He's into musical theater. What a waste. Still, you gotta let him high. It's the only thing that's kept me going.
Subtle.
Halt! This action contradicts the Dalek imperative. Daleks are supreme, humans are weak. But there are millions of humans and only 4 of us. If we are supreme, why are we not victorious?
Logic for you.
The cult of Skaro was created by the Emperor for this very purpose.
Think outside the box.
Imagine. Now, join with me. No, get off me! I never knew you had me. No.
Face hugger.
Yeah. Yeah. You will now be digested for 1,000 years.
Happy days are here again. Busby Berkeley choreography. Can't be seen unless you're above it.
Martha, why didn't you go behind the curtain?
That means planet of origin. Skara.
Damn that peripheral vision.
Every time.
They survive. They always survive when I lose everything.
They're the cockroaches of the universe.
What was it?
And the others? They're taken to the laboratory.
Why? What for?
I don't know. The masters only call it the final experiment.
Superior intelligence. Intelligence.
Peter Parker always got good grades, so.
We are the only 4 Daleks in existence. So the species must evolve. A life outside the shell. The children of Skaro must walk again.
Oh god, they got a choir and everything.
Ave Satane.
Who is it?
Yeesh.
A human Dalek. I am your future.
Alrighty.
Of course. Now, the first question, of course, unanswered in this episode, is what the heck were they doing with the Empire State Building? I mean, it's obviously going to be some kind of conductor.
Oh, yeah.
But there's only 4 of them.
Yeah.
One assumes they're going to have to create 2 male and 2 female to try to reproduce. But, starting from 4, it's going to, because of human physiology, and who knows about Dalek physiology, it would take them millennia in order to create a Dalek race. So, again, that seems to be a huge flaw in the process, but I'm sure we'll find out in the next episode.
Yeah. And they only really took Martha as a female to suck in and birth a new human Dalek.
Because of her superior intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
Well, for the 1930s, she would be a superior intelligence, simply because she won't be born for another 40 years.
But, that said, Frank, good old boy from Tennessee, is superior intelligence, I guess, so... Alright, well... What do you think? What do you think so far?
Well, of course, I always hate the cliffhangers in these 2-parters. Again, the title is somewhat misleading. I mean, yes, they are in Manhattan, but Manhattan has, other than the Empire State Building itself, has very little to do with this entire episode. So they could have found some way of, should have called it the final experiment or whatever, which, of course, has really, really creepy vibes, because in 10 years, the final experiment is going to become something very different under the Nazis.
I did think of that when he was explaining the Daleks to Lula, and it's like, it's called fascism. You'll get to it in about 10 years. And then again, maybe 80 years later after that, so...
Now, you want to talk about coming full circle to 1963. It leads me to believe that somewhere down the line, somebody must have thought, since the Daleks were essentially based on the Nazis, what if we could create a storyline where the Daleks themselves come to Earth in the 1930s and, without realizing it, become the inspiration or whatever for the Nazi regime that was to appear. Seriously, in 1933, I think, is when Hitler began to take power.
Well, yeah.
So
I had an idea for like a Doctor Who story once where it'd be like they go to the Civil War, and it's like right at the end of the Civil War, and like it's supposed to be ending, but they get there and it's like, but it's not. They don't seem to be like it's like a day away. The signing everything is like it should be a day away, and then they realize that's because the South is like being puppeteered by just a Dalek. And I thought that would be so weird, but I could see Doctor Who doing that because that just sounds goofy. So
now I wanted to put this in. This really doesn't have much to do with the storyline, but when who's the leader of Hooverville? What's his name?
Solomon.
When Solomon talked about fighting in the Great War, and this is a statistic, I guess, that a lot of people don't realize. Thousands of young black men volunteered to fight in the American Expeditionary Forces in World War I because they began to realize that even though they had been, freed under the Emancipation Proclamation in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, the Jim Crow laws were still keeping them as second-class citizens. So the idea was, if we volunteer and go to fight for the United States, when we come home as veterans, we cannot be denied that we are first-class citizens. And so all these guys went over, and I mean, here in Oklahoma, at least 5,000 young men signed up and went overseas to fight. And when they came home, nothing changed. And that's when we began to see things like the Tulsa Race Massacre, where you still have a huge group of racist white people who decide they cannot tolerate this thriving black community called Greenwood. And at the end, I think it was the end of May and 1st of June, can't remember the exact date. I know it was the late 20s or early 30s. They just literally went in and burned the entire place down. It was known as the Black Wall Street. And that literally becomes the impetus of the entire civil rights movement. Again, a lot of young black men signed up in World War II. Harry Truman was the first president to finally say, we are going to integrate every part of the armed services. And from there, and again, even though there was still a lot of racism and a lot of racial hatred in the South. I know I lived there from 1959 to 1963 in Montgomery, Alabama. We got the Civil Rights Act passed after Kennedy was assassinated and Johnson took over. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of history behind what we're seeing here, and I don't know how much the average person would know that.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely one thing. It takes a while for Doctor Who to really start acknowledging that stuff when they go back in time. I mean, they're just 2 episodes ago when Martha was like, well, what if I get carted off as a slave? And the Doctor's like, just walk around like you own the place. It works for me. And it's like, okay, that's just a nice, let's brush that aside so we don't have to deal with that. It's not till a while, for a good while, many seasons, when they start to put more of that in the actual episodes. So,
and again, in the 1930s, starting in the 1890s and up literally through the late 1920s, the Great Depression was a huge time of immigration to the United States. Italians, actually a lot of Germans who did not like what was going on in Europe came to the United States during this time. Started most of the famous breweries. The Bush family started the whole Budweiser thing. Adolf Coors moved out to Colorado and started his place. Joseph Schlitz, I think, and several others moved to Milwaukee. So you had the Irish, you had the Italians, you had the Germans, some Greeks coming in there too. And so, yeah, New York City literally becomes the melting pot. I thought it was kind of interesting in just recently after President Carter died. He had described the United States not as a melting pot where everything literally melts together, but he said we're actually more of a mosaic where all of our individual communities, all of our individual ethnicities don't completely blend together. We are literally just tiny pieces of this huge picture. And you can go in and see very specific things about each culture, each ethnicity, in each one of them. I thought that was brilliant of him.
Yeah, so I will say, like, the way they do it in this episode of, like, in Hooverville, doesn't matter what you look like. Yeah. It's just everybody's there, everybody's starving, and it's just like that works. I think definitely.
Yeah,
it highlights more of just the era, the Depression specifically. So,
and sadly enough, I think that was more prominent in the urban areas because your grandmother, your mom's mother and father had a farm out in western Oklahoma, and they pretty much anybody who needed work, anybody who could work, even if they couldn't pay them, they would always feed them during the Great Depression. So, it's just one of the great dichotomies of America. We have this incredible, welcoming, nurturing environment, but there's always that underbelly of racism and violence. So, which we're seeing a lot of in 2025.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you were talking about how many Germans moved to the United States, I was thinking, if only there was a second United States right next to the original one that other people could go to. So.
Oh, and strangely enough, the I want to say it's the 18th Amendment, the Prohibition Amendment. Aside from the fact that the whole temperance movement had started out of the abolition movement from the Civil War, the temperance movement, which basically said that alcohol is the greatest evil since slavery. One of the reasons why that got a final push to passage was that anti-German sentiment after the First World War caused people in the United States to go, well, I'm not going to drink that beer anymore because it was all made by German immigrants and we don't like the Germans. So, I mean, it's incredible how much of that stuff is embedded in our history and we don't even notice it. Here in Oklahoma, just west of Oklahoma City, there was a tiny little town called Kyle, and it was a farm community. It had been settled by German immigrants in the 1889 land run. And as the anti-German sentiment started building up towards the United States entering into World War I, the town council at Kyle got together and said, we've got some problems here because people are looking at us suspiciously. So they said, here, let's just change the name of the town. And not just changed it to something a little bit more Anglo, American. They changed the town's name to Loyal, Loyal, and there is still, to this day, more than 100 years later, a Loyal, Oklahoma. We had another German colony named for the crop that they grew. It was called corn, but it was the German spelling, Korn. During World War I, they switched it over to the English spelling, so we still have a Corn Oklahoma as well. Crazy stuff.
And of course, all of this talk about history and the interesting historical aspects of this episode, on top of the fact that there are Daleks. So,
but here's the thing: there's only 4 of them.
Yeah,
and that presents yes, they had been charged by the Emperor to figure out a way. We are the superiors, and yet we always lose. So that's an interesting premise where they finally come after 60 years now of interacting with Doctor Who on TV, thousands of millennia in other ways, but they've come to the realization that what they're doing, even though they are a superior intellect, they are a superior physicality, whatever, but somehow their strategy is wrong. The humans, these tiny little meat sacks, with the Doctor's help, always seems to beat them. So, it's that if you can't beat them, you have to join them in some way, and that seems to be what's going on here.
And it is such an interesting thing, because this builds on the finale of Season 2 with the Cult of Skaro, because it's like, they are tasked with thinking outside the box, and we don't really see that much in the Season 2 finale. It's like, they escaped with the Void ship, and then they had this, prison that was created by the Time Lords, which just holds millions of more Daleks. But then all those get sucked up into in the Void at the end of that. But that's basically it. Is their plan amounts to, we escaped, so we're just going to take over with a bunch of Daleks. Whereas here they're really like, okay, now we really have nothing else. It's just the 4 of us, the last 4 Daleks in existence, and so we have to really think outside the box. And I like that they even stop for a second and they're like, now wait, we shouldn't be doing this, We shouldn't be doing this. This is very anti-Dalek. But Dalek Sec, he just has to explain. It's like, but that's what we have to do,
Yeah.
It's our purity has led to our own extinction, basically. And so he evolves. And it was also interesting, earlier, when the one Dalek was talking with Diagoras, and he's like, well, my planet is gone, but I have seen versions of this city for so many years, from when it was nothing to being built up and everything. Now you get the 30s where you get the Empire State Building, all the way till pretty much when the sun explodes 5 billion years in the future. And so it's like, how does this persist? But the Daleks do not. So that's all very interesting. And now we see the the product of that is a human Dalek in a pinstripe suit. So,
and again, I suspect he's going to have real problems because he's still got the single eye, although it's not on a stalk. So, peripheral vision, you know?
Yeah, depth perception is kind of out the window, but yeah.
But it's an interesting and again, very frightening parallel that following World War II, a lot of the Nazis who escaped went to South America, hid who they were. And again, here we are, almost 80 years later now, and the neo-Nazis are not like the old Nazis. They're not right out in the open and saying, we are the master races. They are essentially evolving, trying to find ways so that they can return to power, even if that means taking on the characteristics of the very people that they hate in order to gain power.
Yeah. It would be kind of interesting if maybe there was a future Doctor Who story where, like, it is that thing of, like, you don't know that it's the Daleks until maybe there's a cliffhanger, but maybe it's a thing of, like, it's not the most efficient thing, but maybe they have, like, created just human suits instead of the pepper pots that they normally have. They create these human suits so that they can blend in. Maybe they crack open their chest at some point, there's the squid in there and it's all slimy and gross and everything, but like maybe that could be something of like building up, and then you get the reveal, and then you just get the classic Daleks, obviously. Yeah. So,
but again, to me, the perfect circle is if the Daleks somehow manage to end up being the inspiration for the Nazis that they were created for.
Yeah.
To represent. So somebody in the Doctor Who organization start to work on that story.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll go back to the 30s, and we'll have Daleks in Germany somewhere. So as for the other stuff for this episode, I mean, all the side characters are really good. Solomon, Frank, Laszlo, Tallulah, I think they all really work out. And it's interesting they went with the whole pig thing.
Yeah, that kind of threw me off because that looked too much like the hybrid that they were doing with the Slovene.
Yeah, which that was just like a distraction in that episode, whereas here they just needed it for slave labor, which I don't know, it just seemed like a thing of like, well, there's only 4 Daleks, so they need some sort of grunts, basically.
Now, the only thing I can think of is that pigs are highly intelligent. Of all the domestic animals, they are probably one of the smartest. Plus, you're not going to have chicken men. Nobody would. I mean, that would be laughable.
Oh, yeah.
Minotaur having a cross between bovine and human, interesting. Or centaur, half human, half horse. But again, based on the kind of movement that they have to do, and a cow would have to have horns, and the horse has the long neck. So pigs strikes me as just the obvious thing because it's so much easier to create.
Yeah. So, and then Laszlo just got caught between, so he gets to keep his hair at least. So, I don't know if there's anything else really to talk about. You got anything else?
No, I am we finished our first 2 tech rehearsals for Scarlet Pimpernel. We record this on Saturday. 2 days from Monday night, we start our dress and tech, and we open next Friday. So, Pimpernel.
Yeah. And at some point, we're going to watch the other Torchwood episodes.
Yes.
We keep saying it, and then we keep not doing it. So, I mean, it'll be a couple weeks before we actually do the reaction to Countryside, but at some point, we have to just sit down and watch Torchwood. Which is, for some people, it's a bit of an ask to sit down and watch Torchwood. But we'll get around to that and report back on our findings. But yeah, next episode, I don't remember what it's called at all, and it's not on this disc. I'm gonna have to put in a new disc, so I will just have to figure out what it's called next week. So, but that is basically it. With all of that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of our modern Doctor Who reactions, as well as another playlist with every Doctor Who reaction that's on the channel. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.